I want you to picture a void, just an absolute echoing emptiness.
Like total darkness.
Right, total darkness. And in that space, there is just a sound, like a distant, formless hum.
Just pure, unmanifested signal.
Exactly. It is nothing but abstract potential. But then, suddenly, that continuous hum is violently interrupted.
You hear a splash.
A really sharp, heavy, wet splash. You hear a single dense drop of ink crashing into a resonant glass pool.
And just like that, the abstract signal becomes physical.
Right. It becomes a permanent reality in a fraction of a second.
It's such a visceral way to conceptualize it. You know, that transition from pure, untethered information into a tangible record.
Moving from noise to structured data.
Precisely. You are moving from a state of formless noise into a structured data format.
Well, welcome to this deep dive. Today, we have a custom-tailored mission designed specifically for you, the listener. We are analyzing a genuinely mind-bending chapter from J.R. Ahmed's book, The Algebra of Revelation.
It is a fantastic book.
It really is.
Yeah.
And we're looking at an ancient manuscript, not as like a collection of mystical poetry, but as a rigid 1,400-year-old architectural blueprint for universal data storage.
Which is really what makes Ahmed's methodology so compelling, you know?
Yeah, totally.
We are exploring what he terms the data integrity of the soul. And this is all based on his analysis of a single, solitary Arabic letter.
Just one letter.
Just one. The letter Nun. It's essentially the letter N, and it sits entirely by itself, introducing Surah al-Qalam, which is the 68th chapter of the Quran.
So to understand how a system actually records data, right? Like how it takes that abstract hum and turns it into a permanent reality, you first have to understand the hardware.
Right, the physical components.
Exactly. You have to figure out where that signal lives before it executes. And that brings us to the letter Nun.
Because it's not just a letter.
No, from a purely linguistic material standpoint, in the classical Arabic lexicon, Nun actually translates to the inkwell.
The container.
Right, the container, the mikwed. It is the physical reservoir of liquid data before that data is permanently fixed onto a page.
So going back to that sound you described earlier.
Yeah, think back to that imaginary sound of heavy ink swirling in a glass well. That is raw, unformatted material.
And when you translate that material definition into system logic, Ahmed argues that the Nun functions as the ultimate storage medium.
R drive.
Basically, yeah. It is essentially the system's hard drive. It is a highly secure, protective vessel holding raw data before deployment.
Okay, that makes sense.
Within the framework of the text, this single letter operates as systemic metadata. It announces a protocol that prioritizes immutable written code over volatile temporary noise.
But wait, I'm struggling to connect the dots on something Ahmed brings up next, because he points out that in the Quranic lexicon, Nun isn't just an inkwell.
Right, it has another meaning.
Yeah, it is also the specific Arabic name given to the fish or the whale, the alet. How do we get from a small glass inkwell on a desk to a massive biological whale in the ocean? I mean, those feel totally unrelated.
I know, it seems that way until you look at how classical Arabic actually functions.
Okay, unpack that for me.
Well, the language is heavily morphological. Words are built on root concepts that share underlying properties.
Right.
So the shared property between the inkwell and the whale is the concept of the vessel. The deep sea entity is the ultimate massive protective container moving through the dark depths.
Oh, wow. So if we were to design a soundscape for this, we'd swap out that wet ink splash for the sound of a deep sea sonar ping echoing in the blackness of the ocean.
Exactly. Just a massive silent container of potential.
That is wild.
It really is. Both the inkwell and the whale are Nun. In Ahmed's systems architecture, they both represent a reservoir of pure potential energy.
Like a secure environment.
Yes, a secure environment where raw elements are held intact, isolated from external corruption, just waiting to be utilized.
But that introduces a massive functional problem, doesn't it?
How so?
Because a hard drive full of raw data or an inkwell full of wet ink is entirely useless on its own. Passive storage doesn't actually do anything.
Right, it just sits there.
Exactly. The system needs a read-and-write mechanism to process that chaotic liquid potential into something a user can understand.
And Ahmed points out that the text anticipates this exact system requirement immediately.
Right after Nun.
Right after. The very next word in the surah is al-Qalam.
The pen.
The pen.
The tool that dips into the inkwell. It takes that raw, swirling potential and forces it into a structured line or a row, a sire.
It structures it.
Imagine the fierce, mechanical sound of a sharp metal nib aggressively scratching across heavy parchment. It is literally carving order out of chaos.
Beautifully put.
So if the inkwell is the hard drive, is the pen essentially the keyboard, like a universal input device?
Not quite. I mean, think about it. A keyboard is just a dumb terminal that inputs raw commands.
Okay, fair.
In Ahmed's computer science analogy, the pen operates more like a compiler or the read-write head of a drive.
Oh, interesting. So it does more than just input.
Exactly. It doesn't just input, it translates and formats. It takes the infinite abstract code from the divine source and compiles it into a finite, executable format that can interface with the human cognitive center.
Okay, that makes much more sense.
And Ahmed cross-references this mechanism with another chapter, Surah al-Alaq, which famously states that the Lord taught by the pen.
Right.
So in this architectural framework, the pen isn't a simple writing utensil. It is mathematically defined as the universal logic gate for data transfer.
It restricts the infinite into the finite so the signal can be codified.
Exactly.
I love the auditory evolution of that idea. Like if you track that scratching metal nib through this systemic framework, that ancient sound morphs.
It speeds up.
Yeah, it accelerates until it turns into the rapid, rhythmic, mechanical clatter of a high-speed dot matrix printer.
Printing out the code.
Exactly. The abstract signal is being printed into a permanent record. But compiling data and transferring it across a network introduces another massive IT problem.
File corruption.
File corruption. Whenever you download a massive file from a secure server to a local node, there is always the risk of packet loss.
Always.
Under this framework, how does the system prove that the human messenger receiving this download didn't just experience a catastrophic system error?
Well, the text addresses that vulnerability head-on. Right after swearing by the inkwell and the pen and the data they compile, the Surah immediately issues a rebuttal.
To a specific charge.
Right, to a specific charge leveled against the messenger. The critics of the time accuse him of madness, and the Arabic word used in the text is Dhu-l-Nun.
And this is where Ahmed's breakdown of classical Arabic starts to look less like linguistics and more like object-oriented programming.
It really does, because Arabic vocabulary is generated from three-letter roots, kind of like base algorithms.
Right.
Dhu-l-Nun is built on the root JNN, and that exact same root generates words like jinn, meaning unseen or hidden entities.
And Jenna.
Right, exactly, Jannah, which refers to a garden so densely overgrown that the ground beneath is totally obscured.
So the core root algorithm of all those words is something that is hidden, obscured, or fragmented.
Yes. So when you apply that root to human cognition in this system's architecture, madness isn't functioning as a clinical medical diagnosis.
It's a data term.
Exactly. Dhu-l-Nun literally translates to a state of corrupted, unverified data. It is information entropy.
Wow.
It is the introduction of noise that obscures the original signal.
So the opponents of the text are basically saying the data this human node is outputting is corrupted. He's full of noise.
That's their accusation, yes.
And the system's response isn't just, no, he's fine. The system responds by pointing to the inkwell and the compiler, the hardware, essentially stating this is a mathematically clean download.
Exactly. The prophet is presented in this framework as a verified node.
He isn't a chaotic vessel spilling random noise. He is a verified, unalterable record.
Which brings up the next logical requirement for the system, proof.
Right, because how do you empirically prove a node is verified without resorting to magic?
Exactly. And Ahmed observes that the system proves its integrity through the very next line in the text, which highlights the messenger's character.
The Arabic term is kuluk.
Right, kuluk.
Now, I have to admit, calling human character data feels like a massive stretch to me.
It's counterintuitive, for sure.
I mean, human ethics are subjective. They change based on culture, mood, and context. How can you possibly compare subjective human behavior to immutable physical code?
Well, you have to look at the morphological root again. The word for ethical character, kuluk, is derived from the exact same three-letter root as the word kelk.
And kelk means what exactly?
It means creation or physical structure.
Okay, unpack that connection for me.
In the logic of this language, an ethic or a habit isn't a fleeting psychological mood. It shares the same structural baseline as the laws of physics or the anatomy of a mountain.
Okay, wow.
Systemically, the text asserts that a great character is an unalterable data set. The system does not prove the integrity of the download through supernatural tricks or by violating the laws of nature.
It proves it through consistency.
Exactly. Consistent, highly structured, observable human behavior over decades.
It is treating a person's behavioral patterns as if they are as reliable, and inscribed as the law of gravity.
Because in this framework, they are.
That's amazing.
The skeptics can throw insults, they can accuse the node of being corrupted by Junin, but they cannot delete the physical, observable evidence of his structural consistency.
He's a character.
His kuluk. It is the physical printout that proves the compiler worked flawlessly.
That is a staggering way to view human behavior. But it immediately makes me think of the rest of us.
How so?
Well, the messenger in this specific text is presented as a perfectly verified, flawless node. But normal human nodes, we are incredibly buggy.
Oh, absolutely.
We crash, we make terrible, irrational decisions. If human character is supposed to be structural code, what happens when a regular node deviates from its programming? Does the system just delete the faulty node?
To answer that, Ahmed directs us to the end of Surah al-Qalam, which provides a fascinating case study. The text commands the messenger not to be like the companion of the fish.
Which is a direct reference to the prophet Jonah.
Right. And in another chapter of the Quran, Jonah is formally given a very specific structural title. He is called Dhu-l-Nun.
The one of the noon, which, going back to our earlier definitions, means the one of the inkwell, or the one of the whale.
Yes. Jonah was a human node who intentionally deviated from his assigned trajectory.
He abandoned his compiled instructions.
Exactly. And as a consequence of introducing that error into his path, the system responded. He was swallowed by the physical consequences of his actions. He was ingested by the noon.
I really need to pause here because Ahmed's analysis completely shatters the traditional Sunday school reading of the Jonah story.
It really reframes it.
Usually the whale is framed purely as divine wrath, a giant sea monster sent to punish a disobedient guy. But under the system's architecture, the whale isn't a punishment at all. It's the system literally booting Jonah into safe mode.
That is exactly how the framework operates. The whale, the Nun, acted as a biological quarantine.
Oh.
Think back to the sonar ping we discussed earlier. It is the protective vessel.
The system recognized a catastrophic error in the node, but instead of wiping the hard drive and destroying him, it contained him.
It preserved him within the storage medium. The text describes Jonah being kept in multiple layers of darkness.
Like sensory deprivation.
Yes. In IT terms, he was isolated from all external network noise. The system placed him in a sensory deprivation quarantine so he could run an internal diagnostic.
He had to recalibrate.
Right. He had to recalibrate his internal state through rational reflection and acknowledge the system error he introduced.
And once the diagnostic is complete and the code is clean again,
the system redeploys him. The whale ejects him back onto the shore to resume his function.
That's incredible.
Ahmed highlights this to show the absolute staggering capacity of this systemic architecture. It doesn't just compile data, it has built-in protocols to contain, quarantine, preserve, and restore its components when they fail.
If we accept Ahmed's premise that the universe has this automated data recovery and behavioral logging protocol, it implies something incredibly daunting.
What's that?
If the system is constantly recording our physical outputs, logging our character, and even quarantining us to force recalibration, where is all this data actually going? Like, who is maintaining the server logs?
According to Ahmed's breakdown of the Noon protocol, every single output is routed to a permanent immutable ledger.
Immutable ledger.
Yes. He refers to this as the law of total information retention. Within the Quranic system, there is a categorical rejection of the idea that actions just dissolve into the ether of the past. Everything humans do is mustar.
Meaning inscribed.
Yes. Mustar is the passive participle of the exact word used in the opening line when describing what the pen inscribes.
Oh, wow, the linguistic callback.
It's all connected. The logic standard established by the text is absolute. If you don't have a codified record, your argument is null and void.
It's just noise.
Exactly. The text actually challenges the skeptics to produce their own book or record to justify their chaotic behavior. Without a verifiable log, they're just generating noise.
Ahmed cross-references this retention law with Surah al-Kahf, doesn't he?
He does, yeah.
Where the text describes people on the final day looking at their personal logs in absolute terror. They say, what is this book that leaves nothing small or great except that it has enumerated it?
It implies that every single action is tracked.
Right. Every tiny habit, every fleeting conversation is a permanent data entry in an indestructible back-end database.
Which brings us to the climax of Surah al-Qalam and what Ahmed identifies as the ultimate systemic audit.
The final audit.
Yes. The text warns of a specific impending event described with a classical Arabic idiom, the day the shin will be uncovered.
Uncovering the shin, that sounds incredibly obscure to a modern listener. We really need to unpack what that actually meant to the people hearing it 1,400 years ago.
Sure, so in ancient Arab culture, clothing was long and flowing. When a person was about to engage in severe, heavy labor or prepare for battle, they would hike up their robes and tie them off.
Physically exposing their shins to the elements.
Right. Over time, it became a well-known linguistic idiom for a moment of severe, undeniable reality.
Getting down to business.
Exactly. A moment when all pleasantries are dropped and you face the absolute, raw facts of a situation.
So mapping that idiom onto Ahmed's computer science framework, uncovering the shin is the moment the user interface is stripped away.
The front end is gone.
Yeah, it's the moment the front-end graphics are disabled and you are forced to stare directly at the raw, unedited back-end database.
It is the execution of the final audit. It is the precise moment the Dhu-l-Nun, the infinite storage medium, is unlocked, and all the inscriptions compiled by the pen are read back to the system.
Oh, wow.
And according to the text, on that day, those who operated in a state of Dhu-l-Nun,
Meaning they relied on obscure data and noise.
yes, cognitive dissonance, unverified assumptions, they will be entirely paralyzed. The text states they will be invited to prostrate, to finally align themselves with the structured truth, but they won't be able to physically do it.
Because their code is incompatible.
Exactly.
You cannot suddenly rewrite your fundamental data structure when the inscribed truth is finalized and the system is locked down. The audit just executes what's already there.
It is a profound systemic challenge. Ahmed argues that the framework built by these verses entirely rejects the volatile whims of oral tradition, cultural superstition, or personal delusion.
Truth is not subjective here.
In this architecture, truth is compiled and inscribed into the very fabric of existence.
Think about the practical implications of that for you listening to this right now. What's fascinating is how the text categorizes its critics. Under Ahmed's reading, the opponents aren't just philosophically wrong.
Systemically, they are generating noise.
Right? They survive by blurring the lines, by engaging in sociological compromise, just going with the flow of whatever corrupted data the culture happens to be broadcasting that day.
But the Dhu-l-Nun protocol demands that truth is uncompromisingly sharp.
It is as permanent as a metal pen carving a physical groove into heavy parchment. It forces you to look at your own life and ask, are you relying on the volatile, easily corrupted nature of assumption? Or are you writing a clear, verifiable record with your daily actions?
It completely reframes how you view your own existence. I mean, it replaces the modern anxiety of wandering through a chaotic, meaningless universe with the profound and frankly demanding clarity of a perfectly calibrated system.
Let's take a step back and just look at the sheer scale of the journey we just went on.
It's a lot to process.
It really is.
Yeah.
We started in the swirling, tactile, raw potential of the inkwell, the Dhu-l-Nun. We saw the unmanifested data pull to the universal compiler of the pen, al-Qalam. We watched that data manifest into the physical world through the verified node of a human being's unbreakable character. We saw how the system handles glitches, quarantining its errors in biological safe mode, like Jonah in the belly of the protective vessel.
Ultimate reset.
Yeah. And finally, we arrived at the immutable ledger of reality, where the UI is stripped away, the shin is uncovered, and every single action is permanently audited.
When you break down the morphological roots and the systemic architecture the way Ahmed does, you realize it is a masterclass in structural logic.
It really is. But before we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave you with one final provocative thought to chew on.
Okay.
Something to explore on your own that builds on the mechanics we just discussed. We talk extensively about how, in this linguistic system, your ethical character, your kuluk.
And your physical structure, your kalk.
Exactly. How they share the exact same algorithmic root. They are fundamentally the same data type.
They are inextricably linked in the code.
Which means your human habits, the way you speak, the way you treat people, your hidden daily routines. Wait, let me rephrase that. They are not just fleeting psychological moods that vanish at the end of the day.
They're permanent.
In this framework, they are physical laws. They are permanent lines of code that you are actively, right now in this very moment, programming into the universe's ultimate hard drive.
That's a heavy thought.
So I want you to think about this. If the system uncovered the shim and the universe hit execute on your personal code base today, what exactly would your data build?